Salutations Rangers, General Bradley 101 back again with some more lore. Orcs! Everybody loves orcs. If you meet somebody who don't like orcs, well then let me tell you what, they don't really love Warhammer 40k. Because orcs are orcs. They represent everything that is wonderful about this awesome IP. Because they're big, they're green, they're mean, and most of all, they're goddamn funny. If you're an orc, that is, if you're facing an orc, you are shitting and pissing yourself because, oh my god, giant war mushroom of death and destruction. And said death and destruction isn't just brutal, it's also cunning. Or cunningly brutal. But ladies and gentlemen, for as long as the orcs have existed, orcish philosophers have pondered one very question. Not what is it to be an orc, because everyone knows what it is to be an orc, to crump and to win, because orcs always crump, and orcs always win. Even if they lose, they still win, because they got to crump. No, ladies and gentlemen, to be an orc is to ask one simple question above all else. Which git is the strongest git? And such a question has tabulated and tabled orc logic and nonsense for the entirety of its existence. But ladies and gentlemen, with the soon arrival of 10th edition as well as Warhammer 40k Total War and the orcs is in a brand new spotlight, I think it's time we find out who is the biggest git to ever get. But ladies and gentlemen, in today's Warhammer 40k lore video, we are taking a look at the various orc clans and seeing which one of them is truly the strongest, who's the greenest, who's the meanest, and which one of them is going to take the cake in the coming future. But ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's fucking get on with it, yeah? Let's talk about orcs. But before we get into today's video, I just want to say a massive thank you to Empire in Decay. Empire in Decay is a roguelike, deck-building, turn-based tactical game. And here's the kicker that really got me sucked into this, it's loosely based on chess. It involves a lot of different aspects and elements, there's deck-building aspects to it, you get to progress your units, and then you get to fight through the capital empire known as Dandria. The main goal is to get to the throne hall to face the king. It's really great, and full disclosure, they didn't give me any money, but they did give your boys some early access to it. So, thank you so much. I played a little bit, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Go check it out, wishlisted on Steam, really great game, good people, great folks, and yeah, gets my seal of approval. Also, if you're a nerd like me, looks quality, and yeah, it's actually very good. That's all. But before we can talk about orcs, what the hell is an orc clan? You see, whilst many people looking at the orcs think they're just a rummage, hummage, modge-podge of every bloody nonsense underneath the goddamn sun, that is partly true. They do indeed have a culture and cultural and societal rules. They're just not like any fucking thing you ever did see in your life. Allow me to explain to you the loose organization of the orcs. At the very bottom we have the mob. The mob is just a group of boys led by a knob, aka their sergeants. Basic, smallest thing could be as little as 5, could be as many as God Almighty knows how much. It depends. Whenever we talk about orcs, assume it ranges from number 1 to number whatever the fuck makes sense on that given day, cause orcs is gonna orc. But from the mob we then have the warband. A band of boys, the warband. This is literally anything. Could be 1 ship, could be 10 ship. It is orcs. Bigger than a mob because it is not led by a knob, it is led by a war boss, hence the term warband. But then above the warband we then have the war. And this is led by a war boss, but not just any war boss, the biggest war boss who's proved himself to be a big ol' git. This is a named character orc. And a war is multiple warbands coming together to do God Almighty knows unspeakable things. Now what do all these have in common? Every single one of them is part of a clan. Now the clan is essentially the overarching state of the orcs, because the only thing higher than the clan in terms of organization or relation is the literal orc species itself. Basically, every single orc is in a clan, even the orcs who aren't in a clan because they got their own clan, but we'll get to that a little later. Generally speaking, a warband or a band is made up of one group of orcs from the same clan. It's not unheard of that different clans come together to work together in a warband, but that's more reserved for a war proper. But hey, orcs come together and orcs like to crump, and if there's no one to crump, they'll crump amongst themselves. So when we talk about a clan, we're talking more so a subset of boys who like a certain thing, be it money, beasts, or big daka. But like all things with orcs, it's very loose-winded and flowy, so don't get too hung up on the details. Orcs are orcs, you're crumping, you're good. But as I said, even the orcs have their free-spirited emo brethren. Well, I say emo, I mean emo in the sense that they're alternative, not that they like dark nonsense. But these boys, despite being outcasts of orc society, are very, very cheery. Cause yarhar matey, we're starting off with number 1, the freebooters. But what does it mean to be a booter of the free and like free booty? Well, ladies and gents, let's take a look at existing wisdom. taken from Warhammer 40k Codex Orks, 10th edition. A clan for the clanless. Some orcs don't fit into normal clan society. They might be a bit too mean and spiteful. They might have funny ideas about shiny loot being more valuable than Teef. Some can't get their heads around the idea that those bigger or meaner than them are their natural betters. Such orcs soon find themselves outcast, becoming mercenary freebooters instead. Freebooters are the sneakiest, nastiest, and most self-interested orcs in the galaxy. They're adventurers, rogues, and mercenaries who rebel against even the rough and ready strictures of orc society. No small feat in itself. Any orc can become a freebooter. From knobs to weird boys and speed freaks to beast snaggers, all it takes is to behave in so abhorrent a fashion that the tribe rejects the unorky weirdos in their midst. Alternatively, some orcs who find themselves unable to fit into their tribe wind up striking out into the stars after their own ill-gotten gains. Such an exit is rarely harmonious, and many burgeoning freebooter crews have left their tribe's encampment in flames at their heels. Most freebooters wind up exiled for a string of misdeeds that finally get too much for their warboss to tolerate. Many are bad mechs who built a contraption that blew up the tribe, who applied unstable custom jobs to an excessive number of their tribe's wagons, or looted the warboss's personal ride. Freebooter pain boys, often bad docs, may have performed one too many amputations, gotten a nasty reputation for excessive extortion of their patients, or wired up a faulty death dread that rampaged through the warboss's hut. There are orc bikers who wouldn't stop flattening their tribe's encampment, freebooter mobs kicked out for mean-spirited thieving and spiteful backlashes against their biggers and betters, and of course, countless mobs of freebooter flash gits. After all, even the most tolerant of orc gets sick of their bragging after a while. Uniquely amongst their kind, freebooters don't fight for the simple joy of fighting. That isn't to say they don't enjoy a punch-up, preferably fueled by too much fungus grog, but they typically expect a fiscal reward for their efforts. Partly this is practicality shorn of their tribes. Freebooters need to claw together all the loot they can to keep going. Mostly though, it's because these orcs are naturally more acquisitive and rapacious than the rest of their kind. Their warbosses often self-titled as captains, admirals, or whatever otherly dimly understood term that may have caught their fancy, stay in charge, not through brawn alone, but with the understanding of two simple principles. Firstly, as long as the loot keeps flowing, their lads are less likely to challenge their rule. Secondly, their freebooters are ferociously competitive and always out to prove that they are better than their crewmates. The cunning captain keeps his lads busy trying to one-up each other, and thus avoids them getting into their heads to one-up him. Freebooter victims, of course, see none of this. They only know the horde of especially avaricious orcs, clad in a panoply of wild pirate motley, come to murder and plunder all in their path. There's no telling exactly how a freebooter warband will be made up, as they comprise whatever misfits and outcasts they gathered amongst their travels. But one thing is for sure, beginning their path is never pleasant. Orc pirates, pirate orcs, you love to see them. Freebooters are amazing because they are a very unique take on the orc. They are pirates. And just like pirates in our own world, they rebel against the modern strictures of society. Or in orky cases, whatever the hell that makes them. But then that begs the question, how do we rate them? Excellent question, ladies and gentlemen. How am I rating these orcs? Simple. I am rating them on how effective they would be in a military engagement. Essentially, my thinking goes like this. There is a group of whatever it may be. Chaos Marines, Guardsmen, Eldar, Tyranids, whoever the fuck, right? The orcs need to destroy them as effectively as possible, minimizing their own casualties and expenditure. Question, who is most efficient? And who can kill them the bestest and quickest in that short order? Now, this, generally speaking, is a bit difficult with orcs. Generally speaking, most sub-factions have a very specific niche, and they're really good at that niche, but that's all that they're known for. Orcs, however, don't really have that thing. Because, well, yes, snakebites may be known for their beasties, a Goth can have just as good as a snakebite master. Now, the thing is though, snakebites will have more of these masters and better, and at the end of the day, every single orc, whether he be a bad moon or a blood axe, loves to get up close and personal and bonk somebody with a big old stick. Orcs at the end of the day are orcs. In my opinion, they are the most contiguous and most balanced in all the factions. Because yes, some factions have super specialization in one thing, but at the end of the day, an orc is an orc. An orc will crump, and an orc will win, or die trying, which is winning in their case because orcs are orcs. But where would I place freebooters? Freebooters are often a mix of various different warbands on orcs or anything. They are pirates, and that means that they are even more unexpected than regular orcs. Because you could have a relatively small freebooter warband, or you could have a relatively big freebooter warband that's made up of competent folks from each of the things. It's one of those things where a bad freebooter warband doesn't exist long because it's bad and it dies quickly, but a good freebooter warband could have everything good from all the other clans, minus all the negatives that their clans are associated with. Which is why I'm going to be placing them in C tier. Because of that dichotomy, it's a flip. Really good orc, really bad orc. So C tier, middle for them. That's what I'm going. But now that we talked about the outcasts, let's talk about all those in the casts. And we're going to be doing this in order of the codex, starting off with everyone's favorite, the OG poster boys, the blueberries of the green boys, if you will, the Goths. And let's see what the code has got to say about them. Big, mean, and black and green. The Goth clan are the biggest and surliest of a big and surly species. They wear black, considering anything brighter to betoken unnecessary messing about, and wear horned helms, the better for headbutting anything stupid enough to get in their way. These two details exemplify everything one needs to know about the Goth clan, and their no-nonsense approach to war. Goths prefer to fight on foot, typically in huge ground-pounding mobs somewhere between a military formation and an all-out riot. They always bully their way to the front of the charge, their eagerness to get stuck in, eclipsing minor considerations like personal safety. Overt belligerence in the face of imminent peril is actually such a point of pride to Goths that they have been known to take their choppers to anyone using terms such as take cover, or maybe we should think about this in their presence. Despite their preference to hit enemy lines like a rolling tsunami of bellowing warriors, the Goths are not above hitching a lift aboard a battle wagon or speeding trucks, provided it will get them to the fight faster. They equally have a soft spot for depth dreads, corkonauts, and stompers, all of which can easily trample their way into the fray with metal fists swinging. In terms of weaponry, Goths prefer a good solid chopper and a gun that fires as many shells per minute as possible, preferably while sounding an unholy din. Power claws also feature strongly amongst their ranks, for what self-respecting Goth could resist wielding an even bigger fist with which to crump their unsuspecting enemies? Goth clan warbands make prodigious use of Stormboy cores. It is an irony utterly lost upon the traditionalist Goths that the very nature of their clan spawns such high proportion of youths. Orc youngsters seeking to rebel through excessive boot polishing, parade drills, and aggressive saluting. Still, when several dozen hurtling Goth orcs strapped to rocket packs lead the charge, it is not hard to see why the peculiar Stormboys retain such favor with their clanmates. Beyond this though, Goths harbor a deep distrust for anything they see as mucking about. Broadly speaking, this incorporates particularly flashy and unpredictable technologies, and anything other species would describe as strategy or tactics. The Goths pride themselves on being the orkiest of orcs, and will gladly seize on any excuse to prove their claim with feats, fists, tusks, and choppers. Those Goths who can just about appreciate the more brutal applications of complex technology or less than straightforward ways of fighting are, if anything, even more violent than a lot of their mates, proving themselves just as much of an orc despite their peculiar habits. Large shooters and combi weapons carried by Goths usually sport massive combat attachments or boast long handles and reinforced casings to turn them into vicious clubs when used at close quarters. Goth pain boys see the hack and thump of melee as a way of showing off the speed and brutality of their surgical skills. The clan's weird boys meanwhile try to bleed off the excess war energy generated by the Goths around them into truly spectacular psychoplasmic headbutts. Alright, the Goths, the Orcs, the OG checker pattern blackie Orcs. These are the orkiest Orcs to ever orc. As I said, these are essentially the Ultramarines of the Orcs. They are the basic, but they are the bestest in that sense. If you think of an Orc, you think of a Goth. Big, lean, green, mean, and black in this case. Goths are all about straightforward nonsense. They don't care for mucking about, as they call it. No fancy technologies, no expert tactics, no nothing. To be an orc is to be an unstoppable green battering ram covered in enough armor to make the Toyota go yikes, that's a lot of metal. And this is the orcs personified. The Goths have one game plan. That is to raise their axes, scream their war cries aloud, and charge and keep on charging until they reach the end of the galaxy or bust. They do not stop, they do not redirect, they do not reevaluate. They are a living, breathing battering ram of green, mean, black-fueled psychic Y energy. They're orcs. Because who needs battle tanks and fancy gits when you are going to be trampled underneath the weight of several thousand angry orc boys? I'll admit it, these fellows hold a very special place in my heart, because I appreciate the simple, no-nonsense attitude. You know what you do, you get it done. Although, to be fair, I tend to like to fight defensively and calculated, but I appreciate the simple no-nonsense approach that they take. But where does that simple no-nonsense approach get them on the hierarchy? Now, I debated this a little bit, because they are incredibly effective at being orcs. The problem is, orcs are notorious for being easy to trick and control. The Goths are the most headstrong and stubborn of all the orcs. They have one game plan, and that is to charge forward. And they will keep on charging regardless of whatever happens. Even if the ground beneath them gets consumed, they will climb up the cliff and bonk you even still. Again, this means that they are very easily drawn into traps. The thing is though, this is where a less than big brain gentleman may say, oh, that means that they're terrible because you can easily trick them. The man who says such a thing is the man who has never seen a big, thick, green armored chungus crush through bolt rounds that gave a goddamn rain on a Sunday morning. Do not underestimate what sheer stubbornness and green muscle can get you, baby. Any man who underestimates a Goth charge is a man who shall soon be parted with his money, and his head, and his lungs, and his spleen while he's at it. So whilst in good consciousness I can't put them at S tier, I can and I do believe Goths are a solid A tier. Because a regular orc charge is above average. Goths are the best at orc charging. They're lacking a little bit of that panache that puts them at S tier in my opinion, but at the end of the day, I would not want to stand in front of a Goth charge. And I know very few people who would. Except for maybe another Goth. But whereas the Goths may hit hard, sometimes some would argue that being faster is better. Let's take a look at the Evil Sons. Taken from Warhammer 40k, Codex Orcs 10th edition. Red ones go faster. The orcs of the Evil Sons clan feel an undeniable urge to travel as fast as they can. They care little whether this be in breakneck races around the tribe's encampment, riding bikes and speeders headlong into battle, or as part of an immense speed war, tearing across the galaxy in search of conquest. No other clan can match the Evil Sons for raw speed. These orcs are completely obsessed with the notion of acquiring the fastest, shootiest vehicle they can, and then racing across the battlefield in it whilst howling like absolute loons. Their clan colors are lurid red and fiery orange, because any orc with sense knows that vehicles painted in these remarkable colors, and orcs clad head to toe in them, will travel faster than those that aren't. Younger or less established Evil Sons form into excitable mobs. These either dash towards the foe at wild sprint, or else pile aboard their mates' trucks and souped up battle wagons, the better to race to war amidst the rush of wind and roar of powerful engines. Those Evil Sons who manage to scrape together enough teeth inevitably blow them on something mechanized, fast, and painted the very reddish shade of red. A bewildering assortment of half-track warbikes, teleporting combat dragsters, gun-festooned speed wagons, overcharged trucks, and other vehicular nightmares stream from the Games Workshop of the Evil Sons clan, all customized with a strange variety of personalized improvements. It is not uncommon for the richest Evil Sons to drive contraptions powered by jet thrusters, bladed propellers, or squig oil fusion engines. These vehicles always boast everything from crackling energy blasters to nose drills to go faster buttons that double as igniters for fat squig dung cigars. Evil Sons tend towards a nomadic nature, but they can rarely stay still or concentrate on one thing for long. Not all speed freaks are Evil Sons, but the vast majority of Evil Sons will become speed freaks sooner or later. In battle, their ragged formations are a nightmare for most enemies. They move fast and unpredictably, whooping and roaring as they hurtle around their foes' flanks or tear through their battle lines and out the other side. Amidst clouds of fumes and dust, Evil Sons particularly relish a good chase, as it really lets them open up their throttles. Those foes who seek to flee from their attack, or even engage in hit-and-run warfare, often find themselves the bewildered participants in a life-or-death race against these madly grinning orcs. Ah yes, the Speed Freaks, aka ADHD, the Ork. Speed Freaks are a simple lot. They're meant to go fast. To go fast and fast and fast. Simple and efficient. It does not matter who, what, when, where, why. If it is fast, they go. If it is red, they paint it. They are simple as simple can get. They also mentioned the idea of Speed Freaks. For those who are wondering, there are several cults who basically are interchangeable throughout the clans. They interweave themselves into clan societies. So they're not exactly part of one specific clan, but more so they exist within the larger gestalt orcish need. Evil Sons though, they love to be speed freaks. And there's not really much to say here. The Evil Sons operate in one simple way. They are a mechanized force through and through. Bunch of vehicles, bunch of boys, all going at Mach 17. And the orcs will always try and make Mach 17 into Mach 18 or Mach 19. Because you can always go faster. Just like you can always paint something redder. Now, where does that leave them in the ranking? I am going to place them in B tier. Now, why do I say that? They move incredibly fast. They neum from point A to point B in half a second flat. Some of them even less than that because teleportation. But why do I rank them where I rank them? Why are they not as good as the Goths or even better? And most people here will point out and say, oh Brad, you told us not to underestimate the value of a Goth charge, but what about the Evil Sun's speed? Now here's the stark difference. The Goths are there to fight, and they will fight until there's nothing left to fight, and then they'll probably fight each other. Evil Sons though, they only want to go fast. Meaning that if an Evil Sun is given the choice between going fast and fighting the enemy, they'll pick the go fast option. So yes, while indeed they will go incredibly fast to get to the enemy, they always choose the fastest option, which doesn't always mean victory or killing the enemy. So yeah, ladies and gents, when it comes to destroying an enemy and being effective, yeah, no, that doesn't always mean being fast. So I think B tier is a solid place for these boys. But if you want the snazziest, fastest and reddest bit of gear, you need a good couple teeth for ya, don't ya? And nobody got more teeth than the Bad Moons. Taken from Warhammer 40k, Codex Orcs, 10th edition. Too many teeth for their own good. Bad Moons have a natural advantage in that their teeth, and thus their wealth, grow at an exceptional rate compared to all other orcs. Never backward in flaunting their dental affluence. Never backward in flaunting their dental affluence. Bad Moon orcs tend towards garishly colored garb, copious golden piercings, and overly showy but usually lethal custom war gear of every sort. The chosen color of the Bad Moon's clan is bright yellow, which orcs traditionally associate with great wealth. Bad Moon orcs plaster yellow onto everything they own, wear, and ride into war. Furthermore, they will merrily ransack the temples and cultural centers of other species in order to steal everything golden they can get their claws on. Such loot is displayed as further trophies of wealth, or else melted down to make everything from nose rings to gold-plated battle wagons, rams, or even gold bullets for sluggers. The slight drawback to such enthusiastic ostentation is that the average Bad Moon's warband can be seen coming from miles away. There are recorded instances of their garish hordes being spotted with the naked eye from low orbit. Of course, the Bad Moons don't mind this. If the enemy knows where they are, they reason that a good fight will be coming their way all the quicker. Many orcs from other clans mock Bad Moons for being all flash and no substance. Snake bites in particular are given to implying that the Bad Moon's wealth makes them soft. The truth is, the Bad Moons are just as tough and violent as the rest of their species. They are equally as capable of kicking their enemies' teeth down their throats. They just like to be eye-wateringly visible while they're doing it. Thanks to their ever-present funds, Bad Moons tend to be well-fed, highly motivated, belligerently confident, and laden down with enough daka to take the legs out from under a charging Imperial Knight. Their warbands are particularly known for their overwhelming firepower. A plethora of custom shooters and crackling energy weapons are often in evidence alongside tricked-out battle wagons, squadrons of aircraft so laden with ordnance that they can barely get airborne, and of course, towering yellow stompers. More Bad Moons become flash kits than any other orcs, though even this clan gets sick of their swaggering, overgunned braggarts and kick them out soon enough. Many Bad Moon war bosses have plagued the galaxy, always feared for their firepower and high-tech killing capabilities of their warbands. In recent years, the most infamous of these has been Nazreg, sometimes ally of Ghazghul Thraka. Renowned for his cunning and terrifying hordes of heavily armed meganobs, Nazreg has a Vermilion clearance kill order from the Ordo Xenos active on him at all times. Still, they haven't caught him yet, and wherever the mighty war boss is now, he is no doubt up to something that will prove very bad news for humanity. The Bad Moons, the rich orc, the orc from Beverly Hills, the orc that grew up in the suburbs, and the orc that has entirely too much money for their own goddamn good. These are the flashy orcs. You love them if you love to show off, you love being ostentatious, you like drip, these are the drippiest orcs. Though a lot of people hate them because yellow is a bitch to paint. But then I've never seen someone do an all gold Bad Moons army. That might be interesting. Would that be bad or would that be good? I don't know. Questions for orcs? Not for me. But the Bad Moons fight in a very simple way. They are elites, essentially. The infantry have a lot of meganobs, they have a lot of stompers, they have a lot of custom gear, custom blasters. If you want a quote-unquote elite orc army, you pick the Bad Moons. They can do what any ever orc can. However, they usually do it with an excess amount of gold plate. But jokes and memes aside, the sheer amount of wealth that the Bad Moons possess in orcish culture means that they can actually outfit themselves in really good gear. An orc with a bullshit jury-rigged gun is dangerous, but imagine an orc with what is essentially the orcish version of a bolter in terms of complexity. It's not actually a bolter, but it's good. For an orc, it's fucking quality. It makes them even more efficient and deadly and destructive. Also, they utilize a great big deal of power armor. I am a massive slut for power armor, and thus I love the Bad Moons. Which is why for their ranking, I'm gonna slot them nicely and neatly into the A tier. Now when you compare them to the Goths, they might not have the sheer brutality that those big black motherfuckers got, but they make up for it for gold-plated, dripped-out, trippy power armor. Cause I like my teeth drippy, boy. But all the teeth in the world is all well and good, but money can only get you so far. Sometimes you need just a little bit of luck. And that is where the Death Skulls come in. Taken from Warhammer 40k Codex Orcs, 10th edition. Light-fingered loot grabbers. The Death Skulls clan are a superstitious bunch. They put great stock in old orc tradition of blue as a lucky color. In part, this stems from the Death Skulls' acquisitive approach to property, which has led to a wholeheartedly deserved reputation as shifty thieving gits. When one does as much looting as Death Skulls, a little luck goes a long way. Death Skull orcs believe that possession is 9/10 of the law, while the last 10th, if they can count that high, is violently asserting the first 9. They are insular, sneaky, and utterly immoral. A Death Skull will merrily steal another orc's favorite shooter, buggy, or whatever, swiftly paint it blue, and cobble up a few customizations, then blithely sell it back to the now bereft owner as a brand new piece of kit. It says a great deal for the average intelligence of orcs, that more often than not, Death Skulls do quite well of such scams. To accuse them of thieving does not end well. More than one orc has met an unpleasant demise after tussling with a Death Skull, discovering too late that someone has nicked all the pins from the sick bombs at his belt. Due to their acquisitive nature, Death Skulls see battle merely as a necessary step towards the no-holds-barred looting that follows. It's not to say that they fight any less than any other orcs. Of course, it's just the Death Skulls will likely be sizing up which tanks, enemy weapons, and like they're gonna nab the moment the fighting is done. It's not unheard of for a mob of Death Skulls to whip out wrenches and pry bars mid-battle as they begin to rip apart enemy tanks or fortifications, apart for scrap. This proves especially distressing for whatever enemy crew or garrison troops may still happen to be in the situ at the time. Many Death Skull mobs can make sizable livings from their post-battle salvaging. Amongst the most ghoulish of these harvesters are the corpse looters, the personal retinue of the infamously psychotic Mad Doc Grotznick. This macabre warband includes many Death Skulls and some particularly unhinged pain boys who will bundle anything or anyone to the Doc's reeking meat wagons, providing they get paid. Grotznick is particularly proud of the many cyborgs in his warband, as well as the grafted customized monsters he calls his Stitch Boys. Nor do they only take orcish bits, having been seeing now piles of humies and other species too. For what use the Twisted Dark has for such weedy specimens, none can say. For all their unpopularity with their victims, Death Skulls are a favorite with mechs of all clans for the constant streams of loot they bring in. The Death Skulls for their part are happy to foster such arrangements. Post-battle, they lash big rusty chains to their wagons and haul burned wrecks and necks of scrap to the nearest mech's workshop. In return, they receive discount rates on custom weaponry, powerful armor, and hulking vehicles, all dubbed Lucky Blue of course. Some more adventurous and aggressive mechs gladly join the Death Skulls on the field, often directing mobs of looters and batteries of ramshackle field guns to pulverize the choicest and most expensive looking targets. Thus, Death Skulls normally boast all manners of madcap mech weaponry, throbbing power fields and teleport tech to back up their grasping aggression. Ah yes, the Death Skulls, the sneaky thieving gits. Now, what is not mentioned in there is that the Death Skulls are actually some of the best shooting of all the Orkies. I know it may seem contradictory, but when you have mechs directly directing artillery and actually doing the normal procedure of having a spotter and a targeter, well, you're bound to hit a few more shit than you're not. But the range qualifications are not why these boys are known as Orky lads. They are thieving gits. They also produce the largest amount of looted technology, including looted battle wagons. Which meaning, if you got a guard army or just bought a guard army and need to make it Orky, paint it up as Bad Moons baby. Couple Lehman Russes, Rogaldorns, hell, maybe even an Ork wielding a lasgun. Well, an Ork wouldn't wield a lasgun, he'd wield a las cannon and probably be sent on his ass, but he's an Ork, so he has the biggest gun, which means he's the happiest. You know what? Give the Grots lasguns. Sure, they can have those weak, weedy, hummy weapons. But the Death Skulls are lucky. They are known for being lucky, lucky, and lucky. They are thieving and they are lucky. Now, why is it important to be lucky when you thieve? Because as anyone who's worked any type of salvage knows, you are crossing your fingers and hoping that something survived all the explodinating that followed. And given how it was orcs that were fighting, there was a lot of explodinating. So being a little lucky is realizing, oh wow, this core power energy source of the night is actually intact. And not at all blown up, even though the rest of the night is sent to Kingdom fucking Come. That is what it is to be a Death Skull. But how does that affect their combat capabilities on the battlefield? They're regular orcs, and whilst they do indeed have a little bit of good shooting, that more extends towards their big mech guns and other mech technology. They are, however, very lucky. And as many people will tell you, they'd rather be lucky than skilled, because you need to be skilled every single time, but you only gotta be lucky once. But I've never been a fan of luck, so me as the man that I am, I'm putting these boys in a solid B tier. Because for as many times as you are lucky, there are many times that you're equally unlucky. And we consider that the Death Skulls operate at a very high stakes rate, because I don't know what you call it, but stealing shit from an Ork war boss is not exactly a safe means of operation. So for me, I give them B tier. Unlike the freebooters, they consistently operate above average, but they're still very swingy in how they play. I mean, that's the roll of the dice. You get a 1 or you get a 6. You can find that lucky loot, or the Ork war boss can indeed find out that you happen to steal his shit. Either way, that's the life of Death Skull, and they love every goddamn second of it. But from those who are lucky, to those who are very bitey. Let's take a look at the snake bites. Taken from Warhammer 40k Codex 10th edition Orkies. Always forward about being backward. The typical snake bite is gnarled, weather-worn, and garbed in beast-hide leather. They are as traditional as orcs come, favoring low-tech weapons and war gear, and showing nothing but scorn for anything they see as needlessly newfangled or fiddly. As this accompanies the vast majority of things in the galaxy, the snakebikes tend to be grumpy much of the time. It isn't that snakebike orcs cannot or will not use technology. The clan has its share of mech boys and pain boys, though admittedly they're usually substantially outnumbered by runt herds and weird boys. It is more that snakebites employ know-whats only grudgingly when they have to, and they do not consider devices proper until they built up a patina of rust and oil. Snakebites also prefer a more direct solution wherever one is viable. Why fiddle about dyeing their beast-hide clothes a funny colors when they can leave them leathery and cure them with squig-off urine? Why build huts when they can just weather the world's storms and prove their resilience in the process? Why mess about with high-tech chain-bladed choppers that will only get clogged up with bits of Yumi? After all, a solid metal club will bash skull after skull in all day and never run out of fuel. Have to have a truck to ride to battle in? Fine, but any self-respecting snakebite mech will slap it together from scrap iron, bind it with gut twine, and may well end up fitting it with a steam boiler instead of an engine block, if it's more expedient. All this has given the snakebites a reputation as crude savages. This isn't helped by the fact that their warbands seethe with squids and runts of every stripe. These are bred in large numbers by the snakebites' expert and numerous runt herds, where more technologically enlightened orcs might use some complicated gadget to achieve a given task. A snakebite will often just bully the nearest group of a warband's smaller members to achieve the same result, thumping and kicking as many as it takes. Herds of sniffer squids serve just as well as intricate scanning gizmos when rooting out infiltrating gits. Gangs of trained grots collect multicolored dung from squids to feed a variety of diets, which serves them as excellent camouflage for snakebite commandos. The eye-watering and vomiting-inducing stench causing such mayhem among downwinded garrisons that the orcs can sneak up on them unnoticed. Coolant-fed suspension or expertly distilled lubricant, meanwhile, is considered a waste of time when an impatient snakebite orc can jam a handful of shrieking snotlings into whatever bits of rusty vehicle are creaking. The clan gives rise to a large number of beast snaggers. Snakebite-dominated beast snagger warbands are some of the biggest and most successful of their kind. The orcs of snakebite clans are especially prone to wanderlust, and this relentless nature leads to a great many to embrace the beast snagger way of war, the life of a squid-riding nomad who lives off the land and hunts huge, horrible monsters and clobbers anything that crosses his path, has great appeal to these simple souls. A snakebite's aversion to fiddly technology doesn't prevent them from enjoying the noise, explosion, and widespread destruction offered by powerful guns. Snakebite shooters are typically uncomplicated firearms. In place of fancy ratchets, whirling autoloaders, or sparking energy cells, most snakebites prefer basic heavy-bore forearms with magazines of solid slugs that can slam into place without thinking too much. Some use oversized blunderbusses, loading them with whatever bits of scrap metal, rock, and severed limbs they can gather from the battlefield while staying on the move. The clan's looters have def gun rigs to battle that sport oversized harpoon shooters, fungus bomb launchers, or enormous lumps of metal fired with so much propellant that if the def gun doesn't detonate on firing, they can scythe through the thickest armor. Some snakebite looters instead fire volleys of gnashing squids into the foe, usually after a tracer shot comprising a juicy snotling. If the runt survives a landing, they usually can be relied on to race about enemy positions in wide-eyed panic. Some snakemites dunk their little creatures in bioluminescent fungi beforehand, ensuring that even in nighttime raids, the hungry squids will spot and bound hungrily after it. Though rare compared to those of Evil Sons, snakebite speed freaks race to war aboard a bizarre mix of clanking, creaking rattle traps. Some fueled by squig dunk combustion, others by steam locomotion, sail power, or age-old mechanical junk that has nonetheless proven its worth to the snakebites by lasting several battles. The grizzled orcs mount bestial totems on their mounts' prows, delve their chassis with snarling glyphic jaws, and nail hard and squigosaur fangs to the grills, while a few speed-addled snakebites seek out mechs to fit mono wheels, bionic legs, or even booster rockets to their squig horns for added velocity. Others instead swear by fiery cocktails of especially bred fungus to give their rides extra oomph. Surly snakebite speed freaks might wrangle a pair of smasher squigs and lash them to a rusted wreck salvaged from the battlefield in order to serve as a makeshift truck. It is not uncommon to see snakebite's flyboys piloting craft that are little more than metal skeletal frame, over which imprising orcs have nailed skulls and great hides of flying beasts. It cannot be denied that the snakebite's approach to life renders them tough as orcs come. To prove their toughness, all snakebite youths have to endure being bitten by a plethora of deadly venomous snakes. These the snakebites breed as selectively and prolifically as their squigs, and often cut them across the stars from one invaded world to the next, on the assumption that any world weedy enough to let them invade in the first place will probably prove disappointingly inoffensive when it comes to the local wildlife. Alarmingly, They also release them into each new local ecosystem, much to the misfortune of absolutely every living thing that already calls the unlucky world home. Snakebite orcs frequently keep these reptiles as vicious pets, alongside toxtrinids, bizzing nightcrawlers, chomper worms, and a huge variety of aggressive forms of squig. Any opponent fighting face to face with a rampaging snakebite has to put up with a menagerie of snapping jaws and poison stingers emerging from small cages, deep pockets, or unmeasurable recesses of a warrior's punching clothing, in addition to the orc itself. Ah yes, the old man orc. Because ladies and gentlemen, you thought orcs were bad, I present you the redneck hillbilly riding a goddamn dinosaur mushroom motherfucker with a shotgun. Snakebites are a beloved orc clan because they actually got a full-on range refresh, because everyone loves giant squigoths and squigosaurs because it's big, it's mean, and got a lot of teeth. But these boys are your traditional fellows. They love the simple stuff and they love the uber simple stuff. Because why would you make a mech to do it if a goddamn squiggle can do it better? They are simple, they are effective, and they hold the candle for being the toughest orc, or one of the toughest. It's unknown whether these boys or goths are seen as the toughest, but they're up there. Incredibly durable even by orcish standards. Also, their name is just quality. Snakebites, good, very good. Now, where do I rank these fellows on the list? I'm a little conflicted about them, because on one hand, their lack of use of any technology, advanced technology for an orc, yeah, I know, but still, they refuse to use anything technological. So to me, that obviously puts them immediately at a downgrade, because when you refuse to use anything in particular, you're really putting yourself at a negative. But given what I read about the lore and what I've seen in practice, the sheer success that a giant squigoth can render, I'm going to put them solidly in B tier. There's an argument for A tier, and I might be willing to put them in A tier, but just looking at everything, taking it into consideration, comparing them to the other clans, I think they are carried into B tier by the might of their giant squigoths. And I feel that maybe if they got enough squigoths on a good day, they could easily slide into A tier. But to be fair and to be as rational and reasonable as possible, I know saying that and talking about orcs is fucking wild, but I think B tier is a solid place for the snakebites. Because on average they can bite at you pretty well, but who knows, on a good day you might get a little too much venom or a little too under. But I think B tier is a solid place for them. And then, ladies and gentlemen, that leaves us with our final orc clan, and what I believe is, in my opinion, the bestest orc clan. Some of you might have seen this coming, some of you may roll in your eyes, but what you cannot deny is that this was a very cunning choice. Let's take a look at the Blood Axes. Cunning gits. The Blood Axe clan put great store in things that other orcs consider dubious at best. They make no secret of their admiration for the strategies and tactics of other species, going so far as to formulate battle plans and wear crude camouflage. Of course, they still do this in a very orky fashion. Orcs of the Blood Axe clan display a compulsion to apply strategy and tactics to their battles. Being orcs, such approaches are invariably direct and extremely violent, and often colored more by what will be the most enjoyable way to get stuck in than what is ultimately the most expedient course. That said, for the average Blood Axe, there is no greater joy than catching the enemy in a ferocious ambush, pulverizing them with a headlong armor charge, or proving to the mocking gits of other clans that the Blood Axe way works best. The fact is, the rest of Orkdom will never be convinced that the Blood Axe's strange behavior makes them anything other than untrustworthy cowards. Their ways are just too alien. Blood Axes deploy commando mobs to sever enemy communication channels and blow up supply depots, employing high-altitude flyovers and deathcopter scouting to determine where the enemy are in advance. Most shocking to other orcs, Blood Axes will even attack enemy where their lines are weak instead of charging headlong into the meat grinder of the biggest and best fight available. They fail to grasp that Blood Axes like a rowdy punch-up as much as any other orc. They just prefer the odds to be in their favor when they get stuck in. The Blood Axe clan has no overarching color. Instead, they prefer to drape themselves in many camouflage schemes as possible. They grasp that such measures are intended to conceal their warriors, but being orcs, ascribe a talismanic rather than literal value to their practice. This leads the Blood Axes going to war in all manner of garish patterns that bear little resemblance to the landscape around them. It has also seen them paint even airborne or super heavy war engines in all manners of outlandish camouflage patterns, reasoning that the bruisier and more thickly applied the scheme, the better the vehicle will be hidden. The actual value of such concealing measures is hard to quantify, but anyone who's seen a 50-foot stomper lumbering towards them daubed in red and tiger blue stripes doesn't forget the terrifying sight in a hurry. The orcs of the other clans might look at the blood axes askance, but these cunning fighters are a terrible shock for their enemies. Many foes simply refuse to believe the notion of strategic capability of orcs until it's too late. For their part, the blood axes don't care what anyone else thinks of them. They prize results over reputation, and are more than happy to let the other clans take the brunt of a battle's punishment, or say use distraction to seize victory. Now to some of you this is pretty common, and some of you may be rolling your eyes, but hold on, let me explain. The blood axes are indeed, in my opinion, the strongest and the bestest orc faction. Not just because they use tactics and strategies whereas the regular orc considers them utterly ludicrous, it's because of what the enemy thinks of them. You see, when they are fighting other people, when they are fighting other races, the races will assume how orcs behave and plan accordingly. Sun Tzu said it best, know your enemy, know yourself, you'll never lose. The thing is though, most people think they know orcs. They know that orcs will charge headlong, orcs will forgo camouflage, they'll forgo strategy, they'll get stuck in, and most times when people fight orcs, they will use orcs' nature, thus that nature being them easy to trick into traps, against them. Blood axes though, they don't follow that. They break the norm, they're the exception that proves the rule. Which means if you plan a trap for a blood axe orc, you will get incredibly surprised when said blood axe ends up trapping you, cause to you, the idea that an orc would not obviously walk into a trap is unheard of, but to a blood axe, that's a regular Tuesday, mate. So the blood axes get S tier in my position because they do one thing that no other orcs do. They make the enemy second guess themselves, because everyone thinks they know what an orc is, until they meet the cunning brutality of a blood axe. Combine that with how they actually have tactics, gear, equipment, and training for most of their orcs, they set themselves above regular orcs, not just in how they perform, but how other people think of them. And in my opinion, if you take a look at orcs as a holistic approach, these boys easily get the #1 spot. So ladies and gentlemen, that has been my ranking of the various different orky boys, as of the canon 10th edition Warhammer 40k Codex. But ladies and gents, what do you think? Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Should it be S tier? Should it be A tier? Should it be B tier? Or should some orcs even be in the dreaded F tier? Let me know down below what you guys think. And tell me how much of a git I am, how much of a boss I am, or where not you'd crump me or give me a big old grin. Let's hear your thoughts down below. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for watching. I love you, I appreciate you, thank you so very much. Make sure to like this video, comment, subscribe, do all that wonderful YouTube stuff. But most importantly, I want to say a massive thank you to you guys for watching. But even more as a thank you to my awesome members and patrons. Shout out to my Lieutenant tier members, Mr. Eddie V3 and Miss Majora of the Void. Shout out to my Sergeant tier members, Mr. Damiak, Mr. Andy McGee, Mr. Bowen, Mr. Sean IRL7, Mr. Matthew Merrill, Mr. Sergeant Cossack, 68W173D, and Mr. That Guy. Shout out to my corporate tier members, Mr. Tremail the Math Kitty, Lord Rosarius, Tech Priest Toaster, Mr. Bowen, Shauna Smithers, The Gentle Salamander, The Wench of Warhammer, Major Doshinect, Edward King, and Mr. Overanalyze This. And finally, but absolutely not least, shout out to my private tier members, Mr. Thomas Moslons, Mr. Ivan_SBW, Mr. Monkey Man, Mr. Michael Ayeda, Mr. Diego Castro, Mr. Fortus Unum, Mr. CMD Nay, Mr. Eric Massaro, Mr. Dom Marek, Mr. Ken_Sakura333, Mr. Adrian Von Furen, Mr. Morally Bankrupt, Mr. Matthew Peter, Mr. Joshly 1320, Mr. Adrex X1, Mr. Ethan Elam U71, Mr. Kiri Khan, Mr. Malpace-XB1XE, and Mr. Robert Makorovich. Thank you, I love you, I appreciate you. Shout out to the memberships, bunch of awesome benefits, you know what it is. Do the YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, sign up, I love you, I appreciate you, you are amazing. But ladies and gentlemen, you've been beautiful, awesome, amazing people, and I have been the General Bradley 101. Thanks so much for watching. Y'all much the low there, boys and gals. And I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss, Rangers. Right, that's some proper orky business, innit?